Jared, we are starting week 2 college basketball. Week 1 was a roller coaster. It was a terrible opening night, and then a great next 4 days, and then an okay Saturday, a down Saturday, a Saturday where I think we took like 3 teams that lost by half a point. And it was like getting random amounts of points. Like it wasn't like 2.5 and 3. It was like
right.
getting 25, and then they lost by like, or 25 and a half, and they lost by 26 or something stupid.
Yep.
And then a rough Sunday. It's just been up and down, and we've usually not had that in college basketball. I feel like baseball's the one that's usually such a roller coaster. Maybe week 2 will go a little bit more like run of the mill, nice, slow and steady profit like we hoped for, instead of just like super terrible, super awesome, super terrible, super awesome.
Yeah, I had kind of forgotten, with baseball, and then this year in college football, with how much we're playing money lines and everything. I have forgotten about playing against spreads. And number one, yes, the number of half point wins, half point losses that you have, the number of pushes. Like I've had like 4 or 5 pushes in college basketball so far this season. So that's pretty crazy. And then the other thing, just tip of the cap to the books, because these random college basketball teams, and somehow they can still set a line good enough where I've got like 5 pushes in a week. They just, it's almost like they know what they're doing.
Well, and the early season is got extra variability in it, and that doesn't mean you can't profit. It just means there's extra variability. It's just something you have to be aware of. And what I mean by that is early on, we've seen a lot of teams that are up big, playing hard late, and running up the score that you will not see in January, because it's like, hey, we've got the win. Let's get out of Dodge. Like, we're tired.
Right.
And that first week or two, you're talking about guys who are, they want to play longer and stretch their legs, that sort of thing. And you just see some weirder things. You'll have a handful of teams who will find out will be really good or really bad, and we don't quite know that yet. There's just extra variability that makes this first little bit wild. And I track the model error against like Ken Palm in the sheet, and you'll in the books as well. And you'll notice our errors are always higher at the start of the season, and then slowly they'll come down because we'll all get a little bit better. It's been a little bit of a wild start. Before we get started, though, first off, taking points or laying points is terrible and stupid, and you should never do it. So we're going to do it in 2 of the 3 official picks today. But we have a 4th bonus pick that we do not have a slide for, because we do not have any analysis for it. We have 1 line of analysis as to why we like this pick, maybe 2. And so we're going to drop it in randomly in the show. So don't skip around, because we're just going to drop it in. It's going to be like a minute and gone. But my question for you, Cousin Jared, Cousin Totals, is when do you start playing totals in college basketball? Because the model has been projecting them. I actually haven't checked to see if they're doing well. I haven't played a single total yet. I will get that data, and we'll see. And we'll see if there needs to be any updates to the model or whatever with regards to totals. But when do you start dabbling? Is it just based off of football, or is it based off of getting enough data or tracking it, or what are you looking for? Because so far we've just been doing sides, and eventually we will start adding some totals in. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I want to give a little runtime into the season, at least because I can barely keep up with transfers and coach changes in college football. And I mean, I don't really do a good job of keeping up with transfers in college football. And so when you talk about college basketball, it's like just, I don't know, like Bane or something on some kind of steroids. It's impossible to keep up with. So I like to give a little bit of runtime from that perspective. And then I'm probably more likely to play totals on weekdays than I am weekends, just because like you get to Saturdays and season, there's just so much going on. It's like I can barely process all the sides that I'm going to play, much less do totals. So like especially as we get around the holidays, have a little more time to look at it, have a little more run time with sidelines, have a little bit more run time with teams. I'll start dabbling with some totals. But yeah, like once the season really gets rolling and it's a Saturday and there's, hundreds of games, or it's just, no, don't have time.
The model continues to improve all the time, always making updates, always trying to make improvements that will never change. We will never rest. We are never satisfied around here. Hopefully we have solved / can solve some of the problems that last year, at least in the middle of the season, there were these weird teams like a Navy, I remember, who just like, and the model still just couldn't get low enough for them. And the Southland teams a couple of years ago, just the model couldn't get high enough. And I think we've solved that for the most part. So that's the other thing too, is trying to keep up with where the model is identifying some of these really high and really low scoring teams, picking that out and seeing if it's tracking and kind of tailoring along with that. So that's something that I know is your kind of specialty. But again, it's tough. We're splitting, only so many hours in a day between college football, NFL, and college basketball. So again, if you're not with us for those sports, we have shows for them as well, once a week with a bunch of the free picks. And we've got a ton of content over on Dub Club. That sign-up link is in the show description. There's no extended cut today because this is our second show. So the extended cut is the double content day here for you, as we've already given out 9 college football picks on the other show for everyone to see. We'll have 4 more here, these 3, plus again, a secret one, an extra one of a crap game that nobody wants to talk about or watch that I don't even think is on television. That's how bad it's going to be, but we do have a pick for it. So we'll get started here. Michigan and St. John's. I don't know. Michigan's been on a mission, and the model has them at number 15 at this point. They've looked really good. St. John's has been okay. I'm not sure they've magically gotten better at this point from last year where they were just okay. Obviously, they've got a new coach, but I'm not really sure that makes enough difference here. I knew this would be an A grade when I did the projections because I pull other models as well, and I saw that KenPom and team rankings, which that I pull in just to kind of track and see, were way lower on Michigan than we were, and or way higher on St. John's. I think they had it closer to a pick 'em. And I was like, we've got Michigan by 8. I was like, we're going to be on Michigan here. Sure enough, plus 114 is an A grade. You can kind of see it coming. It's the early game. It's according to my back of the envelope math, the best game of the day. Plus 114. I really think that Michigan should be favored in this. I know they're on the road, but model thinks they're a pretty solid team. What are your thoughts on this one, Cousin Jared?
I think that Michigan is too deep in this game. Michigan's played a couple of games so far this season, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys playing double-digit minutes. I think ultimately what it's going to come down to is I think that Michigan's just going to have a longer bench and more players that are actually going to be able to do productive things out on the court. I also say it'll definitely be a great crowd for St. Joe's, I believe. I assume this game's being played at MSG. Yeah, or is it? St. John's is being played at MSG. It's being played in New York. Either way, it's going to be a lot of St. John's. Yeah, St. John's fans there. But I just think Michigan is too talented and too deep in this game. I'm kind of like you. I have no idea why this is plus odds. At worst, this should be maybe like a pick 'em or something like that, and not plus odds. What I would say is that Michigan actually has almost more accolades at the head coach position in this game than St. John's does. Phil Martelli, National Coach of the Year in 2004 on that team that had Delonte West and Jameer Nelson and everything that made a run to the Elite Eight. And, our boy Rick Pitino, for all of the accolades he has, never won the AP Coach of the Year. And so anyway, it's not like, Juwan Howard's still out for Michigan, but it's not like they don't have somebody who has a ton of experience. I mean, Martelli was the head coach at St. Joe's from like 1995 to 2019. So lots of head coaching experience there. It's not like there's just some random guy coming off the bench coaching Michigan. Martelli knows what he's doing.
And I think that, Jake is obviously our college basketball guru specifically. We give him a night off every once in a while. He does have to, grow his beard. But, I know that the college basketball gurus on Twitter, on X, I guess, maybe one day we'll start calling it that, have noted that Michigan looks really good without Juwan Howard, that maybe they look even better than we would have thought. And I think that kind of goes to what you're saying. Like, they've got a pretty good guy there running that ship who knows what he's doing and knows, what levers to pull, when to call timeouts, all the things that a coach can do there to give his team edges here and there. And so it's not like they are, wandering in the desert. They've looked really good in those first 2 games. And as we always talk about, how you play against who you play matters. And Michigan's played some weaker teams, but the fact that they've looked so good matters, as opposed to, if you don't play well against those teams, that matters too. And so, got a little data on both these teams now. Model thinks Michigan's a much better team. Even though it's on the road, it is at Madison Square Garden. St. John's plays like half their home games there, so they get the full home court advantage for this game. It is not being treated as a neutral site game, but still, the model thinks Michigan wins the 70%. I mean, they should have plenty of fans there as well. I think St. John's will have the home court edge for the backdrop and used to playing in that place. But Michigan will have a lot of fans, I have to presume. So plus 114, A-grade pick for that one. 8 p.m. Eastern, South Dakota State and Kansas State. This is going to be strength on strength when South Dakota State has the ball. They have a pretty good offense against a pretty good Kansas State defense. Kansas State will have the edge when they have the ball. They're at home, and that's why the model thinks they should be favored, but only by 6.6. We're going to grab 10.5 points with South Dakota State. It is a B-grade pick. Cousin Jared, there are a lot of B-grade dogs we can take. This is a pretty good, it should be a good game with regards to the quality of being played. Number 91, according to Silent, versus 197. So we're not even in the 200s or the 300s. So it should be some good basketball. The South Dakota State has the offense to hang around. That also could, the fact they have a good offense, could lend itself to a backdoor. Kansas State a very tough place to play, but South Dakota State only has so many options to play these Power 5, Power 6 schools. You have to assume they're going to be playing for a full 40 and either hangs around or got a good shot for a backdoor, right?
Yeah, and I have to say I have been impressed with Zeke Mayo of South Dakota State, averaging 28 points a game through the first couple of games of the season, 7.5 rebounds and 2 assists. Maybe most importantly, and he's shooting really well, shooting 60% from the field, but I think maybe most importantly for this, shooting 87.5% from the free throw line. And so he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot for South Dakota State. And Kansas State, I think, is going to be able to, open up a decent lead in this game. But I think Mayo is going to have the ball in his hands. He's been scoring a lot, and I think when it gets late, going to start fouling him, send him to the line, and I think that he specifically is going to be able to hit some free throws there at the end that will be able to ensure that we keep this game within 10 points or so. Zeke Mayo, really good for South Dakota State so far this year.
I feel like that was an oddly specific prediction. Like, what minute mark is he going to hit like his 5th free throw of the night? I feel like we're almost to that point.
Well, I mean, I think he's, like I said, I think he's going to have his ball in his hands late, and he's going to make some free throws for us, is all I'll say.
The taking points, laying points, it can always be a roller coaster. And it's one of those things that I think it's kind of similar to laying and taking odds if they're bigger. The further away you are from a 50-50 contest, the larger sample size you need for the weird stuff to balance out. And so kind of as we talked about last week, this is not to say that, there's no, there are no locks in gambling. We always say that phrase, but the idea being something wonky could happen either way. South Dakota State could outright win this game, or they could lose by 25, right? We don't really know with any one game, but at least by taking 10.5, we are hopefully more in a closer to reasonable range of weirdness versus, I feel like when you get out to the 20s and the 30s, the games start getting really wonky as to what's going to happen in them. And so taking some points here, but South Dakota State's good enough to hang around as opposed to some of the teams you might take 20 or 30 points with that are just going to get the doors blown off of them potentially. And that hopefully doesn't happen here with a pretty good offense for a South Dakota State team that has made the tournament in some previous years and is should be at least competing for another conference championship. And we're going to sneak in our bonus pick right here. Because Jared, we have North Florida is minus 210 B grade pick. We know nothing about them, but what do we know about their opponent?
Yeah, what we know about, I'm going to go with South Carolina State. South Carolina State is that who they're playing? Yeah. So I saw that South Carolina State was rated by Sideline as the 359th best basketball team in Division I. And so you may be asking yourself, how many, or as they say, as Eric said on Boy Meets World, you may say to yourself, Kyle, that's what I like to call myself. How many teams are there in Division I college basketball? And shockingly, kind of hard to find that. There are
362.
Yes, 362.
There are 363 last year.
Yeah. Well, see, now, are there some in transition from Division I, like from Division II? Anyway,
you're either in or you're out.
Yeah. So okay, but like, does like James Madison count?
Oh yeah, they count. Yeah.
They count for a count, but are they like official anyway? Where I'm going with this is like at most there's like 362, 360 teams, 355, something in that ballpark. And South Carolina State is damn near the worst one in the entire country. And so can I say that I'm going to go with North Florida? It is very good. No. But they are just a slightly below average college basketball team compared to all basketball teams. They're only slightly below average, whereas South Carolina State is absolutely terrible. So that's really all I need to say about this is you're getting B grade value fading one of the worst teams in college basketball. I think that's worth the play.
Yep. Model says it should be minus 231. And so we're going to lay minus 210 with North Florida, worth putting on our card officially. The bottom line there is when you get down to those very bottom teams, some of them are extremely bad. And we think South Carolina State is one of those, which take us to our last pick here, Xavier and Purdue. Because Jared, the model thinks Purdue wins this by an average of 24 points. Xavier probably not as good as their name recognition at this point, and Purdue is just really, really good. I mean, there's not much more to say. They look to me like the best college basketball team in a few years. Early on, they look like they potentially could have potentially solved some of their woes from before, that they were always a really good team, but they always had potential issue that hurt them. They look like the complete package at this point. So we're going to lay 17 with Purdue as a B grade pick. Because Jay, tell us more.
So number one, this sounds dumb to say, but it's amazing what a first round loss to Fairleigh Dickinson can do for a team to get them focused and
plenty of motivation.
Yes, and angry, dare I say, based on what Purdue has done so far this season to Sanford and Morehead State. It's almost like they're playing very angry. I mean, you said it. Purdue's like really, really good. There's not really too much to say in regards to the Purdue side of things. But what I would say, and you mentioned this, I think maybe the first time I was on here for college basketball this season, is that I pay a lot of attention to sideline specifically, and watch a lot more sideline than I do actual, college basketball games. But one thing that catches my eye, and that I feel like sideline has a fairly good track record on, is when sideline is way out on a limb with a team early in the season. And here with Purdue, you have an instance where sideline thinks that Purdue is, the greatest thing since sliced bread, and thinks this line should be way further out than it is. Whereas you compare it to Ken Palm and some of the other models out there say that this should be not a close game, but a much closer game than what sideline would say. And the books have kind of just split the difference between sideline and what all of the other models kind of say. So in that scenario, I usually like to go with sideline, because I feel like 60% of the time, sideline is usually right. And if it's 60% of the time, hey, we're gonna do good in the long run with those types of plays. So this is one where Purdue's a great team. What I have seen with my eyeballs matches that they are a great team. They seem to be angry. If you laid 27 points with them against Morehead State, you covered. They were playing up to the last minute. They hadn't covered. It was like 3 minutes left in the game. Ended up covering. So they're going to play a full 40 minutes. I just think Purdue's really good.
I was just really hoping you said 60% of the time it works every time. Hopefully we'll copyright or trademark or whatever infringements for saying that. But you make an excellent point, and this is why I always talk about that. Jake is our college basketball guru. He can tell you more about the X's and O's, and he watches a lot, but we love having you on because you provide some of these insights into the model, which I think adds a lot of value for our viewership. And hopefully they can pick up on some of your tips and tricks. But you make a great point there with Purdue, and just going out and fleshing that out just a little bit more. Opening night, we were all kind of aligned between Ken Palm and the books and Sideline. Sideline was a little bit high on Purdue, said lean Purdue laying. The 19.5 said probably 22.5 was where it should be. And of course, they won that game by 53. And so, sure, it was Samford, but Samford's not supposed to be a terrible team. So it's one game, whatever, but then it started to diverge a little bit here on the second game against Morehead State, who obviously is a much worse team and than we think than Samford. And we're starting to see the divergence there a little bit with the model because Ken Palm had it at 26. The books had it at 26.5. By morning, it was 29.5 and Sidelines at 33.5. So if the overnight line was off by from the model by 7 points, and we were closer than the book was. And then after that, 30-point win, and you covered the opening number, or the overnight number, not even the opening, the overnight number, with a lot more ease than covering the late number. Now we're kind of in an even larger extension of that into this one, where the books have it at 17. Ken Palm only has it at 12.5, but Sideline has it at 24. That same sort of thing where the model is just like, hey, yeah, they're really good, and you're missing out if you're not seeing it. And I think you're right. It's like that 60% of the time it works every time kind of thing. As much as we joke about that quote, it's kind of what we're talking about here. Again, there's no locks of gambling. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Weird backdoors, or just good shooting nights and bad shooting nights, like that sort of thing can happen. And that's why we don't get concerned about what happens in 3 games or 5 games or even 10 or 20 games. It's that bigger sample that we're tracking, that overall, because weird things can happen. And that's why we always talk about the price mattering, the number mattering. And that's been hopefully the lesson that we've been preaching, that you're catching on to try to become a better by being getting those fringes, those extra win or 2 out of every 20, 30, 50 bets, whatever is going to make the big difference. So that's why we're price sensitive, number sensitive. And the number here at 17 is pretty solid. I wouldn't be wanting to lay 21, 22. Laying 17, I'm with you. This is one that you said you wanted to pick, and I was like, absolutely. I'm 100% like, the model's on Purdue. Let's see if it's right. Let's try to capitalize on it, because if the books catch up and we start seeing some ridiculous numbers with Purdue right off the bat, it's gonna be harder to back them. My hunch is this number overnight moves is when I want to get sooner rather than later. My hunch is by the time this gets closer to tip, it's closer to the 20s. So 17, I think, is a pretty good deal. Go ahead and get in on now. That is our show. There's the recap of the 3 picks we covered in depth. If you missed it, go back and watch for our bonus pick there, a little 1 minute of that. Because Jared, parting words before we cut out and let people watch an hour and a half of college football and college basketball content on this channel.
You asked when we might start dabbling in totals. Just I would say be on the lookout. The next week or two. We always have random totals of the day. Maybe a college basketball one sneaks in there sometime.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We've still got a ton of college football and for now, but that's dwindling. So at some point it's going to have to start shifting over to some college basketball ones. We'll see when the first one gets dropped in. It'll be a fun surprise for people, right?
Yeah. Or maybe just randomly drop an NFL total on a Wednesday. Who knows?
There you go. There you go. And then that one, I slept. I didn't even wake up until the game was in the second half, and I saw it was 7-3. I was like, looking good. Second half, 7-3. I like this. It was a nice winner. All right, that's all we've got for you then today. We back tomorrow with Jake for some more college basketball talking. And if you haven't yet, make sure you catch that college football show. Otherwise, we'll see y'all later.